Have a good day. On this video, you will learn the graph of quadratic function. Now, let us first familiarize with the following terminologies. First is a parabola. So when we say parabola, this refers to the graph of our quadratic function. Next, we have here the vertex. So when we say vertex, this refers to the turning point of the graph of our quadratic function. So on the figure on the right, we have here the first figure that opens upward and the second figure that opens downward. So as you can see, there is a turning point of these two figures or these two graphs. So this turning point is the vertex of our graph. And if our A is greater than 0 or positive, your graph will open upward. And if your graph will opens upward, you will have here your vertex at the minimum point. So as you can see on this figure, it was highlighted as color blue. So here is the vertex where your graph turned, and it has a minimum point. Then on the other hand, when your A is less than 0 or when your A is negative, the opening of your graph will open downward. So since the opening of your graph opens downward, you will have here your vertex, which is at the maximum point of your graph. Next term is the axis of symmetry. So when we say axis of symmetry, that is the line that divides the graph into two parts such that one half of the graph is the reflection of the other. So as you can see from this graph, ayan, it was highlighted as color red. So this line that divides your graph into two serves as the axis of symmetry. So as you can see, as our graph was divided into two parts, it shows the reflection of one another. And for us to determine the axis of symmetry of a given quadratic function, we will always remember this pattern or formula: x is equal to the value of h. So from the given graph, from this parabola that opens downward, as you can see, the value of x kung saan po dumaan itong linya na to ay kay -2. So therefore, the axis of symmetry of this graph that opens downward is that x is equal to -2. And on the other one, the graph that opens upward, our axis of symmetry here is x is equal to +2. Another one is the domain. So always remember that in any quadratic function, the domain is always the set of all real number. And for us to determine the range, okay, so range refers here to the values of y. So you will have to use here the value of k, and the symbol to be used is depending on if your graph either open upward or downward. If your graph will opens upward, your range will be y such that y is greater than or equal to the value of k. And when your graph opens downward, your range will be y such that y is less than or equal to the value of k. So those are the terms that we have to be familiarized as we learn how to graph our quadratic function. Now, are you ready to know how to graph how to sketch our given quadratic function? So I think we can now start discussing how to graph or how to sketch the graph of a given quadratic function. So let's start with the first example, and we're going to sketch the graph y is equal to the quantity of x minus 2 squared plus 1. So as you can see, our given quadratic function is written in vertex form. So the first thing that we need to do is you have to solve or determine or identify the value of h and k. So the value of h here is positive 2, and the value of k here is positive 1. So this value of h and k will serve as the vertex of our given quadratic function. So these values of h and k will be put on the middle part of or at the center of our table of values. This value of h will refer to our value of x, and this value of k is on the value of y. Okay? So after that, we're going to complete this given table of values. So on the right side, we have to write here greater than positive 2, or integers that is greater than positive 2. We have here positive 3 and positive 4. Then on the left, we have to write here the values of x, those numbers that is less than positive 2. So you got here positive 1 and then 0. Now, to complete this given table of values, we have to use the given quadratic function and substitute one by one these four values of x for us to determine the four missing values of y. So again, you have to write the original given quadratic function, and you have to substitute each of the following values of x one by one. So let's start with if our x is equal to 0. Ayan. So from your quadratic function, you will just simply change your variable x to 0. Okay, so then 0 minus 2, you simplify, that becomes negative 2. So negative 2 squared will give us positive 4 plus 1, we have here positive 5. So therefore, when x is equal to 0, our y is equal to positive 5. Next, we are going to use the value of x be equal naman to positive 1. So you have to substitute positive 1 as the value of x from our given quadratic function. So you got here 1 minus 2, that is negative 1. The negative 1 squared, that is equal to positive 1, plus 1 is equal to positive 2. So when our x is equal to positive 1, our y is equal to positive 2. Next, third value of x, we have to use here x is equal to positive 3. So you're going to substitute the value of x, which is positive 3 from the given quadratic function, and our final answer, this will give us positive 2. So when x is equal to positive 3, the value of y is positive 2. Then last value of x, we have here x is equal to positive 4. And when x is equal to positive 4, we got here the value of y equal to positive 5. So that is the first part on how we're going to sketch the graph of our quadratic function. So again, we're going to first determine the value of h and k, since the given quadratic function is written in vertex form. Then afterwards, we're going to write at the middle part or the center part of your table of values, these values of h and k. The value of h is for the x, and the value of k is for the value of y. Then afterwards, you have to write on the right side of your given values of x or h, those number that is greater than positive 2. So you have here positive 3 and then 4. Then on the left side is those numbers that is lesser, positive 2. So you have here positive 1 and then 0. Then to complete your table of values, you have to substitute each of the values of x from the given quadratic function for you to determine these four missing values. Okay, so that will be the first part on how we're going to sketch our graph of quadratic function. Since we already completed here our table of values, we already also determined the value of h and k. So we're now having this Cartesian plane wherein we're going to plot these 5 points on our Cartesian plane. So the first coordinates are 0, 5. So your 0 here is on the x-axis and your y-intercept here is 5. So you have to locate this point. So this will be the first location of your first coordinates or first point. Next, we have 1. So this will be your 1 on the x-axis. And then positive 2 on the y. So you have here positive 2 here. That's why here will be the location of the second point of your graph. Next, we have 2 and 1. So 2 on the x-axis. And then 1 on the y-axis. There you have it. So that's why this will be the location of the third point. For the fourth point, we have here 3 and 2. So 3 on the x-axis or positive 3 on the x-axis, and then positive 2 on the y-axis. So therefore, here will be the location of the fourth point of your graph. And then lastly, we have here positive 4 and 5. So we're going to write here a look for the value of x here on the x-axis, which is positive 4, and going up 5 units. So there you have it. You have here positive 5. So after you plot these 5 points from the table of values, you have to connect those 5 points and make sure that it will looks like letter U as you graph your quadratic function. As you can see, there you have it. This will be the graph of your quadratic function. Y is equal to the quantity of x minus 2 squared plus 1. Then afterwards, since we already graph our quadratic function, we already sketched the given quadratic function, we can now determine the following. The vertex. Again, the vertex refers here the turning point of your graph. And if you still remember previously, as I discussed, your vertex here refers to the value of your h and k. So your vertex here, ang coordinates po ng ating vertex are 2 and 1. The opening of your graph, again, as you can see, since our A here is positive 1, that is greater than 0, that's why the opening of our graph opens upward. So where is your vertex? Is your vertex is at minimum or maximum point? Since the opening of your parabola is upward. So there you have it. If your opening of your parabola opens upward, your vertex is at minimum point. Then the axis of symmetry, we have to use this formula. X is equal to h, or if you're going to look here on the graph, this is the line that divides your graph into two that serves as the reflection of one another. As you can see, dito po siya nag-pass through sa atin pong value ng x, which is 2. So that's why our axis of symmetry is x is equal to positive 2. For the domain of any quadratic function, that is always x, such that x is equal to the set of real numbers. And for the range, again, you have to consider that your graph opens upward. And the value of your k here is 1. So therefore, you have here y such that y is greater than or equal to, since your graph opens upward, positive 1, since that is the value of k. So that is the complete process on how to sketch the graph of our given quadratic function. Now let's discuss our second example. We're going to sketch the graph of our quadratic function y is equal to 2 quantity x plus 4 squared minus 2. So here is your given quadratic function. Again, the first thing that you need to determine if your quadratic function is written in vertex form is to determine the value of h and k. So from this quadratic function given, the value of h is negative 4. And the value of k here is negative 2. So after we determine the value of h and k that will serve as also the vertex of our graph, we're going to write these two values on the given table of values. So again, h refers here to the value of x. So we're going to write here negative 4, and k refers here to the value of y, which is negative 2. Okay, so it should be negative 2, not positive 2. Then afterwards, to complete your column or row for x, we have to write on the right side of negative 4 those numbers that is greater than or next to negative 4, that is greater than negative 4. So we have here negative 3 and then negative 2. Then on the left side, we're going to write here the values that is less than negative 4. So you got here negative 5 and then negative 6. So always remember, we are dealing here with negative integers. So the highest or the higher the number, the lower the value. That's why these are the numbers that is on the left side of our given integer, which is negative 4. So since you already complete the row for the values of x, we're going to find for the value of y. The same thing, we're going to use the given quadratic function And we will use the value of x one by one, or we'll just simply substitute the value of x one by one on the given quadratic function for us to determine the value of y. So let us have the first value of x, which is negative 6. So we're going to substitute x to the given quadratic function and write this as negative 6. So this will be your equation. Y is equal to 2 quantity negative 6 plus 4 squared minus 2. So you have to simplify first what's inside the parentheses. You have here negative 6 plus 4. You got here negative 2. The negative 2 squared, this means negative 2 times negative 2 is equal to positive 4. Then times 2 will give you 8 minus 2 will give you the answer, which is equal to 6. So therefore, when x is equal to negative 6, the value of y is equal to positive 6. Next, we're going to let x be equal to negative 5 naman. So the same thing, we will use the original or the given quadratic function, and then this variable x will change to negative 5, since that will be the value of x that we're going to use for us to determine the value of y. So you got here negative 5 plus 4 is negative 1. The negative 1 squared, that is equal to positive 1, times 2 is positive 2, minus 2 is equal to 0. So that negative 5, or when x is negative 5, the value of y is equal to 0. So the same thing ang gagawin for us to determine the values, or the value of the two other value of y missing. So when x is equal to negative 3, here is our solution. Our y is equal to 0. And when our x is equal to negative 2, here is our solution. Our y is equal to positive 6. So as you can see, we already completed here our table of values. Next, since we already completed here the table of values, we're going to plot these 5 points on our Cartesian plane. So we have here again 5 coordinates. So the first one we have here, negative 6 and 6. So you have to write, or this will be the location of the first point. So you have here negative 6 on the x-axis. There you have it. And then positive 6 on the right. So you have to meet these two intercept on this area, then this will be the location of the first point. Second, we have here negative 5 and 0. So you have here negative 5 as the value of x, or from your x-axis, and then 0 for the value of y, so you will remain on this location for the second point. Third, we have negative 4 and negative 2. So here is negative 4. So you go down 2 units, and there you have it. This will be the location of the third point. For next, we have here negative 3 and 0. So you have here negative 3 and 0. And the last point will be negative 2 and positive 6. So negative 2 and positive 6. So you have to move up 6 units. So there you have it. This will be the location of the last point. So since we already plot these 5 points, we're going to connect this 5 to for us to show the graph of our given quadratic function. So as you can see, this will be the graph of our quadratic function y is equal to 2, quantity x plus 4 squared minus 2. So let us now determine the vertex of our graph. So again, the vertex refers here to the turning point, kung saan po lumiko yung ating given na graph. So as you can see, this is the location wherein your graph turned. So you have here negative 4 and negative 2. So aside from that, without looking on the graph, you can also determine our vertex by determining the value of h and k. So that serves as also our vertex of the given quadratic function. Then the opening of our graph, yes, you can see that the opening of our graph opens upward. And then the vertex, since our graph opens upward, the vertex is at the minimum point. So lagi pong tatandaan, kapag ang opening ng graph will opens upward, your vertex is at the minimum point. Then for the axis of symmetry, again, this is the line that divides your graph into two equal parts that serves as the reflection of one another. So the axis of symmetry for this graph, ayan, so this is the line that divides your graph into two. So saan po ba nag-pass through, on what value of x po yung nadaanan niya? So when we look on the graph or on the illustration, we can say that you have here x is equal to -4. Aside from that, kahit wala po yung illustration, we can determine the axis of symmetry by getting the value of h. Okay, so that is x is equal to -4. So the same po. Then for the domain, always remember that in any quadratic function, the domain is always x, such that x is a set of real numbers. And for the range, so since our graph opens upward, we're going to use the symbol greater than or equal to. So you have here for the range as y, such that y is greater than or equal to the value of k, which is -2. So that is our second example on how to graph our given quadratic function. Next, third example, we have to sketch the graph of y is equal to negative quantity x minus 3 squared plus 5. So again, this is our last example for the given quadratic function that is written in vertex form. So the same thing, so you have to first determine or identify the value of h. So on this example, the value of h is +3 and the value of k is +5. So again, this value of h and k also serves as the vertex of the graph. So saan po ilalagay itong value ng h and k na to sa ating given table of values? Dito po sa center or at the middle of the given table of values. Then on the right side, so we're going to complete here the row of x or for the values of x. So on the right side, ilalagay po natin yung sumunod na mataas kay +3. We have here +4 and +5. Then on the left side, the two integers that is less than +3, you have here +2 and +1. And for you to complete the given table of values, so you have to use the original or the given quadratic function, and you have to substitute the values of x one by one. So here is our solution when our x is equal to +1. So papalitan lang po yung ating variable ng given na value of which is 1. So 1 minus 3, you have here -2. The -2 squared, that means -2 times -2 is +4. Then tsaka po i-multiply si negative sign na nasa labas. So, negative times +4 is -4 plus 5 is equal to +1. So, therefore, when x is equal to +1, our value of y is equal to +1. So, again, this will be our solution for when x is equal to +2. And we got here as the value of y be equal to +4. And then when our x is equal to +4, we have here the value of y which is equal to +4. And when x is equal to +5, we have here our solution which is our y equal to +1. So again, this is the first part on how to sketch or graph our quadratic function. So first thing is you have to complete the given table of values. So we already completed, again, the given table of values. So we're now ready to plot these 5 points on our Cartesian plane. So we have to plot the first coordinates. We have here 1 and 1. Ayan. So this will be the location of the first point. Next, we have here 2, 4. Or +2 and +4. Ayan. Then next, we have here +3 and +5. Next, we have here +4 and +4, and the last one we have here +5 and +1. And then after we plot these 5 coordinates from the given table of values, we'll just simply connect these 5 points, and this will be the graph of your quadratic function given. So the vertex of our graph, so this is the point or the turning point of our graph. So you have here +3 and +5. So the opening of our graph opens downward. So based on the illustration, it opens downward. And to confirm, you have here the value of a, which is -1. That's why the opening of your graph will opens downward. And since the opening of your graph opens downward, so the vertex is at the maximum point. Okay? And then the axis of symmetry here you have to use here the value of h, which is positive 3. And if you have to look on the graph, so if this is the line that will divide your graph into 2, so this is the value of x kung saan po dumaan yung line na yon. That's why you have here x is equal to positive 3. For the domain, the same pa rin po, we have here x such that x is a set of real numbers. And for the range, since our graph opens downward, we're going to use here the symbol less than or equal to. So you have here y such that y is less than or equal to the value of our k, which is positive 5. So again, that is on how to graph our quadratic function given that our quadratic function is written in vertex form. Okay, so next example, I am going to discuss still on how to graph our quadratic function, but this time, our quadratic function is written in general form. So we're going to sketch the graph of y is equal to x squared minus 2x minus 3. So the first thing na kailangan pa rin po is to determine the value of h and k. So since the given graph is not written in vertex form, so we're going to use here a formula. So the first thing is to determine the value of A, B, and C. So the value of A is positive 1, the value of B is negative 2, and the value of C here is negative 3. So for the value of H, we're going to use this formula, negative B over 2A. For the value of K, we have here 4AC minus B squared all over 4A. So let us find for the value of H. So our H is equal to negative times your value of B, which is negative 2. That's why you have here negative times negative 2 all over 2 times the value of A, which is positive 1. So we're going to simplify our numerator and our denominator. So negative times negative 2 is positive 2, and 2 times 1 or positive 2 times positive 1 is also positive 2. So let us divide. 2 divides 2 will give us the value equal to 1. So therefore, the value of h of our given quadratic function is 1. Then, for the value of k, we're going to use this formula. So you have here 4 times the value of a is 1 times the value of c is negative 3 minus the value of b, which is negative 2, and then squared all over 4 times the value of a, which is 1. Ayan. So I just simply substitute the values of a, b, and c from our formula. Then afterwards, we're going to simplify. 4 times 1 is 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. Then you have here negative 2 squared is positive 4 times negative. That's why you have here negative 4. Then 4 times 1, you have here 4. So negative 12 minus 4 is negative 16 divides 4 so that the value of k is equal to negative 4. So therefore, the vertex of the given quadratic function written in general form is that we have here 1 and negative 4. Since we already determined the value of h and k, which are positive 1 and negative 4, so the same na po yung process na ating gagawin. So we're going to put these two values as x and y on a given table of values. So we're going to complete the row of x. So on the right side of this positive 1 is the two next greater integers to positive 1, and then on the left side is lesser positive 1. So to complete your table of values, so you have to use this given quadratic function, y is equal to x squared minus 2x minus 3, for you to determine the four missing values of y. So let us use if x is equal to negative 1. So you have to write here y is equal to negative 1 squared minus 2 times negative 1 minus 3. So negative 1 squared is positive 1, negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2 minus 3. So 1 plus 2 is 3, minus 3 is equal to 0. So therefore, when x is equal to negative 1, the value of y is equal to 0. So the same pa rin yung process. na gagawin, you have to use these 4 or 3 remaining more values of x given for you to determine the values of y. So, the same pa rin po, palitan lang yung mga value ng x na yan sa kung ano na po yung iyong isosolve for you to determine the value of y. Then, the last na gagawin po is to plot these coordinates or these 5 points on your Cartesian plane. So, you have here -1 and 0. We have here 0 and -3. We have here 1 and -4. We have here 2 and -3. And then 3, 0. So, once we already plot these 5 points, you simply connect these 5 points, and this will be the graph of your quadratic function. So the vertex wherein the turning point of your graph is, you have here 1 and -4. The opening of your graph opens upward. Since the graph opens upward, your vertex is at the minimum point, and the axis of symmetry, there you have it. So the line that passes through the center of the graph, or that divides your graph into two, is on the value of x equal to +1. So the domain, still you have here x such that x is a set of real numbers, and for the range we have here y such that y is greater than or equal to -4. So again, that is on how to graph or to sketch the given quadratic function. So I hope nasundan at naintindihan po. That's all. Thank you for watching and thank you for listening. Goodbye.